Okay, this is tutorial number 3, and the purpose of this tutorial is to go over very quickly to refresh your memory on the Draw toolbar. The Draw toolbar is this one on the far left that has line at the top. Currently I'm working with one workbook helper. I'm just going to show a bunch of examples fairly quickly, just so you kind of get your memory refreshed on everything that we did back in the first year. So here we go. I'm going to turn the grid off. I'm going to turn snap off. So F7 to turn the grid off. Snap is off right here. Remember the shortcut for snap is F9, so that will turn snap off, so now my cursor will move freely. So I click on line, I'll go ahead and start, and ortho is on, so it only draws a perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical line. I can turn ortho off, and now it will draw in any direction. So if I want to draw a line, say 3 inches in this direction, I hit 3, enter, and now I have a line that's 3 inches long. If you're not sure, since that line's at an angle, I have to use a lined dimension, and just go ahead and double check and make sure that that's 3 inches. Okay? If I want to draw a perfectly straight line, I'll turn ortho on by typing in F8, and now 3, enter, and there we go, there's a 3-inch line. If you're not sure, for this one you'd have to use a linear dimension, and click, and that one is 3 inches there. So that's the line tool. Like I said, if you want to draw perfectly horizontal or vertical, use ortho. You can also use snap and grid if that's going to help you out. But I think you guys should remember how to do that without much effort. I'm going to skip over infinite line because I don't use that. I'm not too familiar with it. And I'm going to go straight to Polygon. Polygon, it asks me for the number of sides. I'm going to go ahead and put in a hexagon, which is 6 sides. And mine actually says 6 sides in orange, so I can just hit enter. If yours said 3 right there in orange, then you would need to type in 6, enter. And then it says specify center point, or I could type in S for side length. Remember, the key to CAD is looking down here on the command window. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and specify my center point as the center of this line right here. And now I can either do corner or side, and I'm going to show you both options. I'm going to go ahead and start with S for side, S, enter, and specify distance. And here we go, I'm going to snap it right to that guy right there. So from side to side, that is 3 inches wide. All right, I'm going to draw another 3-inch line right over here so you can see the difference with corner. There's another 3-inch one. Polygon, 6 sides again. Specify center point, I'll put it in the middle of this one. This time I'll do CO, enter, and I'll specify the distance, and I'll go to the edge right here. And now you can see that this one is snapping to the corners, where this one is snapping to the flat sides. So that's the difference between corner and side. So that's polygon, that's line, and we should be pretty good to go on those. Just a little refresher. Alright, moving on, we are going to go to rectangle. And notice I have a bunch of options. Once I click on rectangle, C for chamfer, E for elevation, F for fillet. You guys should be familiar with chamfer, which makes angles at the edges. You should be familiar with fillet, which has a radius or makes it round around the edges. And you should be familiar with W for width, which makes the rectangle thick. And those are the ones I'm going to go over right now. So C, enter for chamfer. I'll go with 0.5 and 0.5 for my distances. And I'll type in D, enter right now, because down here it asks me for D if I want to type in dimensions. So D, enter, and I'll do 3, enter, and 2, enter. So there's a rectangle that's 3 inches wide by 2 inches tall with a 1/2 inch chamfer on it. So if I want to check out my chamfer here, what I can do is I can draw lines straight from here to here, and I can trim them off, and that way I can double check and make sure that that distance from there to there is a 1/2 inch, and of course it is, and from there to there is also a 1/2 inch. So if you don't remember, that's what a chamfer is. It makes angles around the edges of the rectangles and so on. So here we go, I'm going to do fillet now. So F for fillet, I'll do a radius of 0.75, and I'll start my rectangle, and you can see there it is. D, enter, 3, enter, 2, enter. So there's a 3-inch by 2-inch rectangle that has a radius of 0.75. If you're not sure, here's radius right here on the dimension toolbar. Click on the radius, and it tells you right there it is 0.75. So you're good to go. So those are some of the different things you can do with rectangle. And so there we go. We will go over polyline in a bit. It's actually going to be one of the lessons, one of the advanced features that you're going to learn this year that you did not learn in Drafting 1, so I'm going to save that one for a bit. Same with arc. I'm going to show you a bunch of different arcs. Circle should be pretty basic. When you click on circle, it asks for the center point. And remember, maybe you want this to be the center point right here. and now it asks for the radius. It says down here specify radius, or you can type in D for diameter. So if I know my diameter is 3, then I might type in D, enter, and then, oops, somehow I got out of the command. So let me try that one more time. Circle, specify center point right here, D, enter, and now I type in the diameter of 3, enter, and that has a diameter of 3. If you're not sure, here's the diameter button on the dimension toolbar, and it tells you it has a diameter of 3. Okay, I could also do the radius right here, and it should tell me I have a radius of 1.5. Remember those symbols, circle with the slash through this diameter, R is obviously the radius. So that is circle. After circle, we get into ellipse. Ellipses is specify the start point. So maybe I want to go from this midpoint to this midpoint, and maybe I want to have an ellipse that has a certain distance. Okay, and it looks like that. The nice thing about ellipses is they're easy to move. They're also easy to make bigger or shorter, and you can move them with the grips. So they're fairly easy to play around with and change the shape. So that is ellipse in a nutshell. Keep in mind for all of these there are different things. For example, it says specify axis start point. I could also specify the center by typing in C, enter, and maybe I want the center of the ellipse to be right here on this endpoint right there. And now I specify the axis endpoint, which might be on that quadrant right there. And now my ellipse is going to be perfectly fitting inside of that circle. So there are different options. The key to CAD, remember, is looking down here on the command window. Okay, and I think you'll remember that from whenever you had drafting 1. After ellipse, we go into this one, ellipse arc. I'm not really going to go into that one. Point. You may use different points around, and as you click, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but there are little points right there. If I highlight these, you can see there are the little points. To change the point style, you type in DDP type. DDP, I can type. DDP type. Hit enter, and up comes this. And I can change it from a little dot to maybe something that's a bit easier to see, like that guy. And click OK, and now you can see those points on there. Okay. The other thing you can do is type in the word point, and then hit S for settings, and it brings up the same box. So those are the two ways: DDP type, or type in point into the command line, and then hit S for settings. Now you may want to use these to snap things to. For example, you may want to snap your line to this, and you'll notice your line won't snap to it unless you use snap to node, which is right here, and now it will snap to it. Here it will not snap to it unless I go snap to node, and now it will snap to it. Or remember, I can go to my eSnap settings down here on the bottom and turn node on, and now it will snap to that. Okay, and I can put a bunch of points, all around my screen and kind of connect the dots, and now it's really easy to connect these dots because snap to node is on. And so you might do something like that. Okay, so that is how you use points. After point, we go into spline. We're not really going to get into that. We'll go into hatch. You guys have done hatch before, but here it is. There are different types of hatch, so I'll just do this one. It's already set for me. If I wanted to change it, I could always click on this and go to ISO, and there's different ones, and ANSI or samples, and maybe I want to do an MC Escher type looking thing. Click OK. Specify points, and I'll click inside of this guy, hit enter, and I always do preview, and it would look something like that. If I don't like it, I hit escape. Maybe I want to change the scale to make it a little bit bigger. I'll change it to 2, and it would look like that. Or maybe I change it to 0.5. Oops. And I hit escape on accident. So here we go. Sample. Back to MC Escher. Click OK. Specify points. Click inside of there. Hit enter. And I was going to change this to 0.5. 0.5. And always hit preview. And there's what it looks like a little bit smaller. Once you're happy with it, just hit enter, and it will keep it in there. Remember, that is a hatch. I can click on it. It's just one grip. I can either move that hatch around, or I can simply delete that hatch as well. Okay. One other thing I want to remind you about hatch is this is where you can also fill things. So you can change it from hatch to a fill, and you can do all sorts of different colors. Maybe I want to change it to this nasty color of green right here. Click OK. Specify points. Click inside of there. Hit enter, and hit preview, and hit enter, and it would look like that. Okay. One thing I want you to remember is fill has to be on in order for this to work. So if I type in fill, enter, and then off, enter, it's not going to be there. It is there actually, but fill is turned off. So you just got to make sure fill, enter, on, enter, and there it is. And someone from Drafting 1 who's using your computer may have turned fill off, so you may need to turn it on. After that, make block, not going to worry about it. Region, not going to worry about it. Note, I'm going to talk about these two a little bit later. These are actually the text tool, so I'll remind you about those in a bit. So that is the draw toolbar. I'll see you in the next tutorial for the modify toolbar.